Imagine that you're on the Love Boat, on your way to Rome, when suddenly the captain comes on air and says, "Beware, the Wuhan virus is here, and the ship has been quarantined." What a nightmare scenario. Plenty of nightmare scenarios with this particular coronavirus, ladies and gentlemen, and it's spreading quickly around the world. And we've got all sorts of interesting information when it comes to this coronavirus. The New England Journal of Medicine has just released their first case study of about 400 cases, about incubation period and the like. We'll be getting into that. We'll be getting into the comparison of this coronavirus and SARS. Very similar indeed, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing out there? We're broadcasting live on the ScrewTube, covering the latest on the coronavirus because nobody really wants to talk about it. Don't talk about this virus. It'll just end up being like Ebola. It'll just end up being like something that we've seen before. But this definitely has the potential of doing quite a bit of damage, being the next Spanish flu. Seems like the Spanish flu had a very similar kill rate, about 2 or 3%. Right now we're seeing cases show up around the world, very disturbing cases from France and Germany. Not a whole lot of talk from U.S. officials as far as the suspected cases. We'll be getting into that. What is the true nature of what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, the video guy. But it seems like, the whole system is beginning to buckle. And the outbreak hasn't even really started yet. And you'd be surprised how quickly things, become a nightmare scenario out there. Just apply a little pressure and the whole system starts crumbling. We'll get into that as well as some of the latest figures. Of course, the numbers have gone up. We're well above 7,000 cases now. It's totally blown away the SARS epidemic. That lasted a whole year, and in just a few weeks, they've blown right past through that, ladies and gentlemen. Any case, we're just hanging out on the ScrewTube channel. Want to say hi to everybody out there. Philip James, what's going on? Johnny Favorite, Scrappy D, Ben Parker. How's everybody doing out there? Where shall we begin? This is really just kind of like the warm-up to the main broadcast for the day. Of course, we broadcast once a day on various topics. And, that may include the cell towers. It may include the vaccines, the fluoride. We tend to focus on the eugenics programs, Agenda 21, Georgia Guidestones, because these people are seriously out to get you. And I think, they're liking the whole virus thing because it's like flushing out the system. It's like a rinse of society, takes out all the weak people that might actually try and cash in on Medicare, Medicaid, all of that stuff. The insurance companies love these viruses because, it means more money for them, ladies and gentlemen. But this outbreak is very much like doing laundry by hand. How many people have done laundry by hand? You just kind of like turn on the faucet and just watch the water stream and start soaking into the clothes little by little. That's kind of like what an outbreak's is like, we should say. And, in China, it's definitely started to overflow, and now we're starting to see cases around the world. We're looking at 2 very disturbing cases in France and Germany. It'll be a few days before we find out exactly what's going on over there. But according to the New England Journal of Medicine, we're looking at an incubation period on average about 4 or 5 days. You can check that out on our website, sdfnreport.com. We upload, post articles throughout the day. But their case study is really interesting. They studied 400 of the first cases, and they were tracking a 4 or 5 day incubation period before symptoms began. And it's definitely worse for people above 50 years old. So, there's a lot of demographics that we could cover. I think we'll just refer you back to the New England Journal of Medicine. A lot of things to say. Australia has reported its 8th case, and some of the info out there is pretty disturbing as well. Seems like some patients were on planes full of people, and there was like a full dispersal. Right now, we're looking at the cruise ship full of coronavirus. Imagine being on the Love Boat on your way to Rome, and here comes the captain, says, we got a couple passengers from Wuhan here, and they're showing symptoms. What kind of symptoms are we talking about, ladies and gentlemen? Have you been watching the news? The images that are coming from over there are rather disturbing. I mean, people are just dropping dead. What kind of virus is this? They say, oh, well, the flu kills more people, which is perhaps very true. But you don't see the flu doing anything like this, and people are going kind of crazy over there. We're getting lots of reports of, supplies being, hard to come by. People are waiting all day just for a mask or some kind of hand sanitizer. All sorts of stories of of pain and suffering, really. People being barricaded in, people being stuck on planes, stuck on cruise ships, doctors and nurses over there working 24-hour shifts and the like, sleeping in their clothes, on the floor. There's all sorts of riots and civil disturbances that aren't being reported right now. As these towns and cities try to close their doors to the outside world, people are rioting. There's all sorts of issues with, first responders being able to come in, et cetera, et cetera. Life is pretty much ground to a halt. Nobody's even trying to add up the bill just yet, but, this is going to cost, the world economy, quite a few percentage points, to say the least. But it must be worth it. The question is, what would drive the Chinese to shut down their entire society? I mean, they're all about the business, ladies and gentlemen. They're all about the Benjamins, you know what I mean? And they just shut everything down, including Disneyland, and you see everybody out there with, the outbreak suits. People are dropping dead. What is this virus? If you didn't know better, you'd say it escaped a lab, and the mainstream press has actually said, well, yeah, there's, weapons labs in Wuhan, the only ones in the country, pretty much, right there. And it just happened to be released, a few miles from there. Now, what's really interesting, just thinking about it, going back to the New England Journal of Medicine report, in the text, they state that this all kind of started from the seafood market. They're all propagating that narrative. But if you look at the diagrams, they separate cases that were from that seafood market versus cases that were not attributed to that seafood market, and the first blips on the radar are cases not linked to the seafood market. So you have to wonder if there was a secondary infection there to kind of cover up the source, or what's going on. But you can't exclude deployment in a food market or any other kind of crowded place at this stage, to say the least. If you're just joining us, huge cruise ship, 7,000 people on the Love Boat, stuck outside of Rome. It's turning into, a very nightmarish vacation for many people out there. We've got some details about that particular case, if we can find the graphic there. Probably not. Not on this stage. Okay, video guy. We need a new video guy. Anybody out there got skills? It's getting serious out there, ladies and gentlemen. Any case, as far as these suspected travelers from the infected area, and how infected must it be for these cases to be spiraling around the world? How many potential cases are there? How many people are traveling from China per day? Figures are as high as 1.5 million people, ladies and gentlemen, with reports of 5 million people fleeing Wuhan at the height of the epidemic. I mean, there's just, it's like the worst case scenario, basically. And it's always like that. Surprise, surprise, after, the genie is out of the bottle. Anyways, on the 25th of January, and we're seeing a lot of cases tied between, the 19th and 25th. That's kind of like the first wave of infections that are making the news. But every 4 or 5 days, you get another wave until it crescendos and flares up into, people showing up at the hospital and deaths and like. But right now we're seeing, little waves, little ripples in the ponds begin. First, group A, say from the 19th to the 25th. Those are the cases that we're seeing online right now, and a second wave is about to strike, and it'll probably take at least 10 subsequent waves for it to flare up. That's basically what we saw in China the very first month. There were just a few cases, and all of a sudden it was the big bang, if you will. But here, 25th arrived in Italy, and then on the ship. And so they've been on the ship for like 5 days. Everybody's probably contaminated on that ship, chances are. So now you got 7,000 people, basically in quarantine until tests can, provide further information, which could be another 2 days. But chances are we're dealing with something rather spectacular there. We talked about the case in Germany, which is outside of Munich, the other day. And that was the first human-to-human propagation in Europe. It wasn't domestic to domestic, so it's kind of like the bridge before sustained infections can occur. But that seemed to have infected a whole workplace. And that's certainly, what you don't want to see. And then there's the Paris incident, which is making the news, which is really what you don't want to see. You got one guy going into the emergency room and sitting there, and usually you got to sit in the emergency room for an hour or two at least, coughing everywhere before anybody helps you. But finally they got that guy into a room, but they didn't identify him as an actual Wuhan case for at least another 24 hours after that. And so people were treating that case with really only, some of the safety measures. What we know from SARS cases is that, if a patient like that walks into an emergency room and is treated in a hospital, even if they're wearing masks and the like, most of them will be infected. This stuff, this virus requires something more than masks. And that's been, well recorded in numerous case studies and scientific journals and reports. So given the lag time and the high probability of cross-infection there, we're probably looking at a patient zero, if you will. And there were reports on French television that one of the medics or nurses has already shown symptoms. We cannot confirm that. But at this stage right now, everybody's looking at this hospital, Georges Pompidou in Paris, like, what happened. But it's certainly a lesson, and in outbreaks, there are many lessons to be learned. And this virus seems much more virulent than SARS. Already it's blown through those numbers considerably, to say the least. And now we're starting to see the ripple effects, the domino effects. And each one of these people coming in from, that ground zero is a potential of, has the potential of infecting, millions of people, if they land in the right spot. And they're all landing in the right spot. And I'm sure there's a lot of people probably looking at this, higher up, if you will, in the government, like, what's going on? Is this some sort of biological attack? I mean, that's what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, to say the least. This looks like a bioweapon. And we're not hearing much about the cases in America. Everybody seems to think A-OK. What we do know is that when they evacuated the 200 people from Wuhan just recently, flew them through Alaska and then on to California, instead of just landing them in Ontario as originally planned, they diverted them to a military base and they've quarantined them there. So, I mean, they're obviously taking this situation very seriously. Much more so. I mean, everybody's taking this much more seriously than the flu, even though the flu kills so many more people so far. And I guess we could spend a little time on that. In 2017, the winter of 17, 18, 80,000 people died. It was a record for recent history. They haven't seen that for decades and decades, pretty much since the Spanish flu. And they're saying this year is going to be worse. Why, you may ask? Well, it's not because there's a lack of supplies or vaccines or the like. It's because people's immune systems are being weakened due to all of this technology that's out there. The EMF fields and the like wreak havoc on the immune system, and that's the true cause. Of course, it's the perfect bioweapon, if you will, or electronic warfare weapon, because you don't actually die from the exposure. You die from a secondary infection caused by the exposure. And that's brilliant. I mean, that's Agenda 21 at its best, and that's why people should really be protesting these 5G death towers in their local communities, as well as the 4G death towers, and turn off the Wi-Fi and, go grab yourself an Ethernet cable. Any case, ladies and gentlemen, getting back to the big breaking news story, 7,000 people are on the Love Boat to hell right now. And they're parked outside of Rome. They thought they were going to get to, visit that beautiful city. But instead, they've been quarantined. And you just can't imagine the nightmare that's unfolding over there. I mean, you're on the Love Boat 1 minute, and then the next minute, it's like you can't leave. There's a super virus rampaging. And here's another real interesting story. We caught a glitch in the matrix. We were doing some research on SARS because of, the similarities and the like. And we were looking at patient 0 at the Hong Kong outbreak, which was well documented. They have the name, where he stayed, the people he, came into contact with and everything. And before checking into the hospital, he was on the 9th floor of the hotel, room 911. No kidding. 911. And they say that he infected numerous people on the floor, not because of sneezing or coughing, but because of, now brace yourselves, this is kind of disgusting, but because of the diarrhea. They say that the diarrhea caused fecal clouds that dispersed through the hallway and through the other people's doors, and basically invaded their system that way. And if you've ever, smelt the smells of a bathroom outside of a bathroom, like in a hallway or whatever, you're actually breathing in a fecal cloud. And I thought that was a real interesting concept because, people, probably think of it as something else, like, it smells like shit, right? But no, it was the coronavirus in the fecal cloud that infected people at that hotel room. So you can actually, we could have titled this broadcast, "Watch Out. Coronavirus spreads through farts as well." That's disgusting, ladies and gentlemen, but it's true. And so, you might be standing in line for your mask or, for some Krispy Kreme, if you will, and all of a sudden somebody that's infected lets one rip next to you. You're like, "Oh, that smells horrible." Too late. You've been infected, bitches. That's according to the scientific documents. Now, what's also interesting about this virus is the perpetual attempt by people that are infected to infect other people. We're seeing people trying to escape isolation, numerous videos like that, people spitting on other people. We got spitters out there. And it seems like, the virus, once it infects the person, it's like a demonic virus, and it forces people to go out there and infect other people. And so you might think that this is all well contained, but it's certainly not contained if you've got a bunch of people out there trying to infect other people once they get infected. And I think that's like another dimension of viruses or virology that people don't really think about is the psychology of the virus. And they all want to reproduce, and that's why they eventually, exhibit symptoms like coughing and sneezing. It's so that they can reproduce, or diarrhea. It's so that it can reproduce. It's part of its life cycle. It's part of its reproduction cycle. It's kind of like, fish, swimming upriver, in a sense. It's rather disturbing. But true nonetheless. Did you hear about the Elon Musk 5G death grid coming online mid-2020? You're going to get so screwed by this. People better pay attention. They call them Starlink. They should be calling them Death Stars. Thousands of Death Stars. We got this new video of people just minding their own business as the outbreak continues to expand. And, we've got endless video like this. This is definitely part of the syndrome. It's like, sudden death syndrome, drop dead syndrome. Here we got a spitter spitting on the, on the buttons of an elevator. But you've got this drop dead syndrome, and people are like, nah, no big deal. The flu is worse. The flu is worse, huh? Ladies and gentlemen. But this coronavirus isn't the only demonic virus that's circulating right now. You thought you heard it all. Just wait until you see this for yourselves. In fact, these world leaders who are spooky, part of this New World Order system, are actually demonically possessed by this demonic virus that we've labeled as DEV666. No pun intended there. But you can actually see the mark of the beast on these world leaders' foreheads. You've got the little devil horns, and it's one right after the other. It's not just one guy. It's not just, some of them. Ladies and gentlemen, it's like literally all of your world leaders are demons in disguise. We've removed the filters that the television channels use, to make them look more human. But they're definitely there. I mean, these people are definitely, possessed, infected, if you will. Now, you've seen the airports use thermal imaging basically to try to detect this virus, which now turns out not to be effective because this weaponized virus doesn't necessarily exhibit symptoms while spreading. But regardless, ladies and gentlemen, pay attention, be on the lookout for DEV666, the demonic virus. You can see the mark of the beast right there on their foreheads. They look like the devil. They don't look like Klingons or Romulans or reptiles, as some conspiracy theorists might suggest. These people, look like the folklore, image you have of the devil. And nothing you see out there is by chance. Not even, the common folklore that circulates around our society. It's all part of the program, if you will. What is the program? It's right there in your DNA, ladies and gentlemen. And that's really, a fantastic news story that the mainstream media just doesn't want to cover. It's the dynamics of DNA, even in the simplest form of life. And there is no, chemical evolutionary pathway from chemicals to DNA. It's like throwing Scrabble letters on a table expecting to get Shakespeare. It's never going to happen. And the law of biogenesis, this is a scientific law. It's like, gravity, thermodynamics. So the law of biogenesis says life can only come from life because of how complex it is. And, today we can't take chemicals and put them together and, turn them into a cell. We got to take a cell, we got to kind of gut it, maybe replace the DNA or something like that, do a little hack in the code. And in fact, all of the living things you see out there are running on a program, part of a code. It's like we're in this big matrix and, demons are here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, it's literally the pages of the Bible playing out before your very eyes. Did you know that? So you have to wonder, what is this virus? What are these viruses, these diseases that plague humanity? And, I think people have their own, perspective on that. But we certainly don't hide our opinions, which is that it certainly looks like what it looks like out there. And that certainly makes a whole lot more sense than, what they're trying to teach you in these secular institutions. And not just secular, but really, demonic. They're trying to transgender children and the like. I mean, we could spend all day on that, but, it's really just out of whack. And they say now 1 out of 4 kids in California identifies as bisexual, gender fluid, little children. You know what I mean? That's the new world we live in. How's everybody doing out there? Big shout out to everybody in the audience, ladies and gentlemen. I see Owl Oracle out there, Lisa Roll, Tasha, Jan, Phil, what's up again? Loving your narration on your channel out there. Little Ina, how you doing? Jane, Heather, Stephanie, EMZ, Beyond Awake, Free Spirit. Much love to everybody out there. Of course, this is the backup channel. We've been censored and banned so many different times that we just got to keep starting from zero. That's another real disturbing sign. There's no freedom of press, freedom of speech. There's really no democracy in America anymore. You basically get to choose from pre-selected candidates, and their parties are just completely corrupt. And we're not going to turn into politics here because that makes people flee. But in any case, getting back to the big breaking news story, a cruise ship, a love boat full of passengers, 7,000 at least, have been quarantined off the coast of Italy, right outside of Rome, after it was discovered that 2 of the passengers were from Wuhan and they're exhibiting symptoms. It sounds like a story that we've heard before. I'm pretty sure we had the exact same story during the Ebola crisis. I think, we'll have to wait and see how real this story becomes. We've been following quite a few different cases. So far, everything that we've seen, is on TV. It's on the internet. It hasn't really hit Western society yet. We're not seeing videos like this yet from Europe or America, but the potential is definitely there. And knowing these people, this new world order, this Legion of Doom out there trying to, kill off humanity, it wouldn't be beyond them to unleash a virus like this, whatever they can get away with. And that's something that we've really kind of noticed as a pattern with these people. They'll deploy whatever they can get away with. If they start lining people up and shooting them on the street, there's going to be a problem, right? Videos are going to go out. People are, going to start to riot. What's up with the mass executions? But if they take people out, with silent weapons, then there's really not a whole lot to complain about, right? Who are you going to run to? If one of these death towers is actually targeting you, who are you going to run to complain to? Nobody will believe you, And that's what makes their weapons, so dangerous. And we're trying to get a hold of the video guy. What'd you do with the Death Tower videos? But in any case, the problem with the eugenics program right now is that the entire system, from law enforcement to policymakers to media influencers, are all basically singing the same song, and that means anything can happen, and you're going to be the last to know about it. And that's why they've gone to censorship as a final last resort. They've been totally exposed after the WikiLeaks, the Podesta files, and the like, the Epstein murder. I mean, they've been totally exposed. All they've got left to do is, the only thing they have left to do is to silence everybody out there. So that's basically what we're going through right now. It's a bad sign. It's the first sign of tyranny. And, we're hearing about a lot of censorship, even people being arrested for uploading some of the videos that you're looking at here. Simply uploading these videos is a crime out there. And, anytime you start seeing censorship, it's just, it's kind of bad news. Look, I mean, you can understand people's, desire for PR management and to look their best every single day and the like. And nobody really wants, an outbreak being covered in their neighborhood. But it's bad for business, bad for tourism, et cetera, et cetera. But it's also kind of scary to think that just simple videos like this are being taken down, and you just have to wonder how bad it is. Initial reports where the numbers are through the roof, and we're getting a lot of other reports. There's a lot of stories that we haven't really shared, but I think once people can wrap their minds around how bad the outbreak actually was in Wuhan before they shut everything down, and how it was allowed to evolve unchecked, I think a lot of people are going to get upset. And it seems like everyone that went through Wuhan between let's say the 15th through the 22nd, that 1 week period, got infected, and wherever they went on to infect people and the like. We're also hearing of incredible stories at the beginning of the outbreak over there, where they were promoting communal banquets where 100,000 people had gathered for some kind of community dinner, and they were eating out of the same plate and saying, oh, look, everything's safe. It's the hyper-normalization kind of syndrome. And it seems like that might have been a huge source of the infection. But when you look at how these cases have exploded from Wuhan to the rest of the country in just weeks, I mean, the numbers must have been enormous. The numbers of people infected must have been enormous. And either this will all kind of burn out and turn into nothing in the next few days, or in the next few days we're going to see these cases explode everywhere. And we're not just talking a little explosion, we're talking major explosion. And this is a pretty nasty virus on just about every metric. The way it attacks, the attack rate, the infection rate, and the like are ultra high. Short incubation period, which means that you can get subsequent waves, and you can have like up to 3 waves in like just 2 weeks. And these waves will crescendo into flare-ups that show up in the hospitals as severe pneumonia or even deaths. And that's basically what we're looking at right now. Behind the scenes, there are waves happening, and eventually it's going to crescendo somewhere. We've been following a couple big stories. If you're joining us late, we invite you to check this out on replay on demand. This is a live broadcast and unscripted, and it's kind of dumb just to repeat yourself over and over again. But the cases keep going up. The outbreak continues to expand. Governments around the world are treating this more seriously than ever. Airlines are shutting down travel. Countries are closing off their borders, neighboring countries and the like. It's a full-blown emergency out there, and the videos that we're seeing kind of show us a small sampling of that, from local quarantines, roadblocks everywhere, mini riots, if you will, runs on people running on food and the like. And it's a nightmare scenario. You're not hearing the worst of the worst stories because everything on television has been sanitized, but from various interviews of people in this quarantine zone in Wuhan, it's like ghost city, everything's shut down, lack of supplies, medical supplies for certain things. And sometimes there's not enough food at the grocery store and the like. It's hard to say, but obviously there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this kind of thing. Day one of the lockdown, everybody went to the hospital, as you can see on the left, overcrowded, major source of infection right there as well. And we could go on and on, but the story right now is real bleak, and we're not going to have a better idea. Nobody's going to have a better idea of exactly how bad it's going to be for the next 7 or 10 days. And even though incubation can be as short as 4 or 5 days, as was pointed out in the New England Journal of Medicine, not all cases were that way, but enough so that it matters. And it looks like you've got a complete spectrum of cases with this virus, which strategically, makes a lot of sense. You've got the flexibility of fast expansion with a short incubation period, plus some cases being longer incubations, which means that it'll survive some missed opportunities with with shorter incubations. And so you've got a wide variety of problems with this virus, including shedding without symptoms, meaning people are infectious before symptoms actually show up. And that's obviously going to cause a lot of problems in terms of trying to quarantine people. As far as the cases in Europe, which are very concerning, especially the one in France, I mean, they have hardly any hygiene over there for the most part, and you just can't see them wearing masks, shutting down Paris, locking everything down, people staying in their apartments and the like. So we expect that if the virus does begin self-sustained infections out there, that it'll be worse than Wuhan to a certain extent. And with this virus, given the way it looks weaponized, that could really be like an atomic bomb. But again, this is actually kind of like what these governments want. A virus like this that just kind of like takes out the weaker people out there is a win for them, because these weaker people are also the ones that are going to need medication and prolonged treatments, chronic treatments and the like. And so if they can just take out people with underlying diseases or pre-existing conditions, that's definitely a win-win for them, for their whole system. And so they've got every incentive, they've got quite a bit of motive to take people out, whether it be through the fluoride, the death towers, the geoengineering, the pesticides and the like. They've got the incentive. And without a justice system that actually puts this in the check, then they've got free reign to continue on slow killing everyone. And that's kind of like the problem at the core of this new world order. It's all run by demons that are anti-life, that want to kill people. And so what's going to stop them? Certainly not the FBI, certainly not the Department of Justice and the like. And so we're all just being held hostage by this system that can unleash death towers at any time, unleash viruses at any time, spike your water at any time. How would you know? How would you know if they're having a bad day or a bad year and they decide to push a few buttons just to put a smile on their faces? I mean, that's how these serial killers operate. And what's protecting you from them in the physical world, ladies and gentlemen? Undoubtedly, everybody's being exposed to this eugenics program. When you look at the PFAS, perfluorinated chemicals that they're finding in everybody's blood, I mean, there's no escaping their slow kill. And we could go on and on about that, how people look older today for their age than ever before. It has something to do with the growth hormones as well as other factors. But they're accelerating aging. They're trying to take people out every which way they can get away with, and that's something that everybody should pay attention to. We'll leave it there for this broadcast. We're not going to drone on, but literally we're up against demons, ladies and gentlemen, straight from hell. And if that doesn't give you motive enough, they're raping children as well. So might as well get on board and fight back against this new world order, against these eugenics programs. Feel free to like and share and mirror our content. And we recommend that everybody start protesting against death towers in their communities, hand out flyers, get to know people around you, and build a network that's focused on making your community a better place, versus just going along with the cult members singing their songs and the like. If they were serious about stopping these eugenics programs, you would know, right? They wouldn't be rolling out the death towers. They would stop the fluoride. They would stop the vaccines. They would stop the pesticides. You wouldn't see any chemtrails anymore. But guess what? That is continuing, And so you can cheer whatever you want to cheer, stock market, the wall, whatever, they're still not on your side. And just because, you like the guy, that doesn't mean he's on your side either. So we'll leave it there for this broadcast. Till the next time, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.